And so, hello there, and welcome back to another Nice to Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing the Full Monty TV series, the sequel to the Full Monty movie, which came out in 1997. But before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, that if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello there to my viewers, but you prefer to listen to podcasts, well, you can with this one at Nice and Movies on Spotify. And if you are already listening on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also watch this podcast visually on my YouTube channel at Nice and Movies on this platform. Likewise, wherever you may be watching or listening to the podcast, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course, and leave me some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there's always things to improve on. Also, I should say, it is the ongoing saga of hay fever. Yes, the ongoing saga of hay fever continues. I have hay fever quite bad right now. First spoke about my problems with it in my podcast on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Great film, by the way. And my problems with hay fever continue. Although my hay fever isn't bad today, I have been sneezing throughout the day. So if I'm sniffling in this podcast, I do apologise. If I bumped up in this podcast, I do apologise. You know, if I sound bumped up, should I say. And also, it's an annoying habit I've got at the moment where I keep saying and also, it's one or the other. And if I am not on top form today, it's just because I'm feeling a bit under the weather, because that's what hay fever does to you. Also, I went swimming earlier today, and when I go swimming, I get this thing that I like to call fuzzy thinking, because it's just something that happens to your brain once you've been swimming. I don't know, it just makes you think differently for the rest of the day. But yeah, I've been swimming and I've got hay fever, but other than that, this podcast should be great. Should be a banger. So, let's get into it. Let's get into my thoughts on the Full Monty TV show. So, this is a sequel, as I already mentioned, to the Full Monty movie, which came out in 1997, and which followed a group of men who decided to get into stripping in order to get some money after they became unemployed, and it was set in Sheffield. Now, 25 years later, or around 25 years later, I'm pretty sure, this sequel series has come out. It came out a couple weeks ago, actually, and I was a bit late to the party watching it. You know, I heard it came out, and I think at the time I was finishing off Barry, so I didn't check this series out when it initially came out, but about a week or 2 weeks after it all aired, because I think it all came out on Disney Plus actually altogether, so a week after it came out, or 2 weeks after it came out, I can't actually remember, I finally sat down to watch this series, and it follows the same characters, the same group of men from the Full Monty movie, 25 years later on, as they're still trying to earn a living in this working class community in Sheffield. And in the series, as already mentioned, we get the original cast back from the Full Monty movie, and also, again, that annoying habit, and we get this younger cast in the show as well. So we get the old cast and the young cast, and their storylines are intertwined with one another. And here's the thing with the Full Monty TV show. I really enjoyed it, and I should say here that I'm a big fan of the Full Monty movie. I watched it for the first time, I think about 5 or 6 years ago now. Yeah, it's time's flown by. But anyway, yeah, I remember watching it for the first time about 5 or 6 years ago, and really liking it just because of how unique it was. I hadn't seen anything like it. And then I watched Brastoff, and Brastoff has a similar idea, and I really like Brastoff as well. But yeah, the Full Monty was the one which was more popular. They came out around the same time, and the Full Monty, you know, was the more popular film of that subject matter, and I really enjoyed it the first time I saw it. Then I hadn't seen it for about 5 or 6 years until the other day, where I'd finished the Full Monty TV show, and I thought, I don't remember much about the Full Monty movie. I'm going to check it out, because, you know, they're both on Disney Plus. That's where the TV show, that's where the sequel TV show is. You know, it's a Disney Plus production, and the Full Monty movie is on Disney Plus too. So I checked out the Full Monty movie once again, and I forgot how good it was. The film is it's so much fun to watch, and I also love how moving it is, and how unique of a story, how unique of a story it is, and how tight it is as well. You know, it's like only 90 minutes long, and it's so tight though, and so poignant, and so funny, and just it gets it right. It's one of those movies where you watch it and you have such a great time watching it, but also, you know, it's a very poignant story. It's a very emotional story at that. And it's a very real story, and yeah, the movie is great. The TV show, the sequel TV show, 25 years or around about that down the line, isn't great, but it's good. And the fact that it's good, I think, is good enough, because normally an idea like this wouldn't work, doing it as a TV show later on down the line. But what I liked about this series was that it still had that same joy from the Full Monty movie, and it still had that same comedy, and it still had that same heart and many of the same themes from the original movie, and it had the same cast, which I think helps as well. But they also modernised it, and they added in some new ideas, some new themes, which I thought worked. And what it is in the end is it's a modern day British TV show. You know, this isn't the Full Monty movie. The TV show, it's not the Full Monty movie. I actually think they're quite different. But what the TV show does is update the story in a way. I mean, I say update the story. It doesn't include many of the same storylines from the first movie, but it includes new storylines, which I thought worked, and I do think that it does a good job with the stories that it tells. And at the same time, it does pay homage, it does pay debt to the original Full Monty movie, especially in one episode where they sort of make fun of it, because the original cast are all back. You know, Robert Carlyle, Mark Addy, Tom Wilkinson, they're all back. All the, was it 5 or 6 members of the Full Monty from the original Full Monty movie, they're all back in this show. And in one episode, they make fun of the stripping routine that they had to do at the end of the Full Monty. If you've seen the Full Monty movie, you know exactly what I mean. And by the way, if you haven't, check it out. It's on Disney Plus. Would highly recommend it. Such a great film. But yeah, they make fun of the stripper routine that they have to do at the end of the Full Monty in one of the episodes, where most of the original cast members are held up in this hostage situation, and they all have to reenact their Full Monty routine. But obviously the cast members are much older. It's been however many years, you know, was it 25 years since the Full Monty movie? But then watching the redo the routine, it was really, really funny. And yeah, that episode, I think it was episode 6 of the series, because I think there's 8 episodes in the series. I finished it a couple of days ago now, so I can't remember how many episodes there were, but I think it was episode 6, and that episode was so great to watch. And, you know, all the original cast is back, which is great, but at the same time, Tom Wilkinson, who I'm a big fan of, his character doesn't have much of a character arc in this series. Like, when I watched his role in the movie, he's got more of a character arc. He's meant to be this middle-class person, he does all these sort of middle-class things, and then he loses his job, loses money, and he doesn't have to tell his wife. And that's quite a moving storyline in the movie, and they don't really follow that up in the show. If anything, they had this new character played by, I want to get his name right, Miles Jupp, who's a great comedian, by the way. I've seen him on Would I Lie to You quite a couple of times, you know, quite a few times. He takes on the Tom Wilkinson storyline, really. And I really liked Miles Jupp in the series. I really, really enjoyed him because of the way his storyline goes. I found it more interesting as it went along. Like, when that character was first introduced, I was like, oh, he's just going to be filling in for somebody, isn't he? That's what it already feels like. It's episode 1. It already feels like Miles Jupp is filling in for somebody, even though I quite like him. I don't know if he's fitting in there. By the end of the series, I really liked his storyline. But I think the best storyline is with Mark Addy in the show. Mark Addy is one of those people where, I think I got his name correct there? Yeah, I have. He's one of those people where whenever he pops up in something, whether it's A Knight's Tale, whether it's Game of Thrones, in which he plays a very horrible man, or whether it's The Full Monty, the movie, and this TV show, he's just so good, and there's something about which, yeah, I absolutely love. I love watching Mark Addy in anything, and his storyline I thought was the most interesting and engaging. I also really liked seeing Robert Carlyle back. It's always a joy to see Robert Carlyle on screen. You know, I don't know if many people know this, but he played John Lennon in the Beatles film Yesterday, which came out in 2019. Although I didn't love that movie, I always really liked that scene. You know, I didn't speak about it when I reviewed Yesterday, when I started this channel all the way back in 2019. Well, it's been a while now. And I didn't speak about it because it was a spoiler for the film Yesterday. You know, the fact that John Lennon is in that movie played by Robert Carlyle, but I do think Robert Carlyle did a great job playing John Lennon in that movie, but that's another topic for another day. Really went on a bit of a tangent there, but I really enjoyed seeing Robert Carlyle back, and he just fits back into that character Gaz. I think that's what the character's called from the original Full Monty movie. Just fits perfectly back into that character, and also his kid from the original Full Monty movie is back in the show as well, and it's the same actor. I really like that they did that, and he's great in the series. And yeah, the storyline with Horse as well, one of the characters from the original Full Monty, he's got a really, really good storyline, which was quite emotional as it progressed. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed all the storylines with the original cast. One of the cast members as well, what's his name here? Steve Hewson, who plays Lomper. He is back. He was a gay character, or one of the gay characters from the original Full Monty movie. He's got a storyline involving his fascination with, well, it's not really a fascination, but he's got a storyline involving a pigeon. And that was quite fun to watch, although a bit silly. And the other original cast member that's come back, what's his name here? Just want to get it right. Hugo Spear, and the character's name is Guy. He is back, but his character arc seems to be, well, he doesn't really have a character arc. His character just leaves halfway through this series, and there's no explanation of where he's gone to. And apparently the actor was fired off set. I don't want to go into the reasons why, because that's not what I'm talking about in this review today, but he was fired off set of this show. But I still think they could have added like a line in to say where that character had gone to. So he doesn't really have much to do, the character Guy in the series, but the rest of the original cast, you know, really nice seeing them back. And yeah, I think that's one of the reasons this show works. I like the younger cast members in the show, the new young cast that you get with this series. I like them, but I wasn't as invested with their storylines, and I didn't get as invested with their storylines as I wanted to. Because the reason I watched this show was to see those original Full Monty cast members back. You know, that's the reason anyone would want to watch this show. If you're a fan of the Full Monty movie, to see these characters back and seeing what they're doing 25 years down the line. That's the reason you're going to watch the show. And so the young characters I thought were good. I didn't dislike them, but I didn't get invested into their storylines as much as the older storylines, if you will. And the series has its problems though. One of the reasons I don't think it's great is because I think it needs to be longer. It's only 8 episodes, and within those 8 episodes, a lot of things happen. You know, there's a lot of story there, but I think there could have been more done, and they could have gone into more depth. You know, this series doesn't quite reach the heights I think it sets out to do, to achieve. You know what I mean? It doesn't quite reach the heights that you want it to, and the payoff isn't really there at the end with these characters. I get what they're trying to do in the end, but it didn't really work for me. I actually thought the last episode wasn't the strongest. I thought it ended fine. The rest of the series, though, I thought there was far more. It was far more build-up and just not enough payoff. And I didn't feel there was enough focus there in some parts. And, you know, the things about the Full Monty movie was that it was so tight to the point. And now because the Full Monty sequel is a TV show, it does get a bit baggy. And one of the things I liked about the fact this was a TV show is we got more focus on certain characters. Like, there's an episode focused around Lomper. There's an episode focused around Mark Addy's character. There's an episode focused around Gaz, Robert Carlyle's character. And there's an episode focused around Horse. I mean, these characters are in each episode, but there's some episodes which focus on those characters more than others, if you get what I mean. Like, I don't know, one episode might focus on Gaz as the central character in that episode, but Mark Addy's character is still in it, and Horse is still in it, and things like that. You understand what I'm saying? But at the same time, I mean, I liked that. I liked how certain episodes focused on certain characters, but at the same time, it also meant that there was some baggy parts and some storylines that I just straight up do not think were needed. I thought that the first episode was a bit weird because there's a storyline involving a dog, which I just think is played silly, if I'm being completely honest. And it continues into episode 2. I can't remember if it's in episode 3. Shows you how invested and how interested I found that storyline. You know, it's not that interesting of a storyline, and I really wish they took it out. I just felt it was a bit silly and didn't fit the tone that this show was going for. And yeah, there's some storylines I can't speak. There's some storylines like that where I think the show doesn't quite get its tone right all the time because it throws some weird storylines in there. I don't really know whether you have to start with the dog and Destiny, who's meant to be Gaz's other kid in this series. I enjoyed watching that character, but some of the stuff with her feels a bit far-fetched. Just a bit far-fetched. And there's some storylines as well, as I've already touched on a bit with the character of Guy, but also not just Guy. There's this character that Mark Addy gets quite close to, this young kid. That storyline seems to be mostly forgotten about by the time you get to the end of the series. And yet there's a whole thing about that kid. I forgot the kid's name now, but you know, there's a whole thing about that kid which was so important in like episode 3 or 4, and then by the end of the series the kid's still about, but they've almost forgotten about that storyline. And yet there are missed opportunities in this show, and there are parts which I think could have been taken out, and I do think there could have been more of a payoff and more focus on this story so that the payoff could have been a lot grander. But in the end, the series was still good though. It was still a good show to watch. I had a lot of fun watching the series. I don't care what anyone says. I thought it was a solid sequel to the Full Monty movie because I enjoyed seeing all these characters back. Really more than anything, I enjoyed seeing all these characters back. And their storyline still felt real. You know, as already mentioned, my favourite storyline in the show was one of Mark Addy's character because, I mean, he's sort of got two storylines going on. And the storyline going on with him and his wife in this series, I'm not going to really go into spoilers, but basically you find out that Mark Addy's wife's character is now having an affair. That storyline I really liked because it was in line with the movie. Same with Robert Carlyle's storylines in this show, you know, his character's storylines. Those storylines felt in line with the movie. Some of the other storylines didn't, which is why I might have a bit of an issue with them. But, you know, I liked those storylines quite a lot, and they really shine for me with this series. And also, it's funny at times. I said an also again, didn't I? But it is funny at times, and it's got heart. There's some really emotional moments, some really great moments. I just wish the show was great overall. I didn't feel that it was great. You know, and the movie was a very poignant film. That's the thing though, overall the movie was very poignant, the original Full Monty movie, and there are some very poignant moments in this show. I just don't know overall if it was as poignant in its message as the original Full Monty movie and its ideas. I think some of the ideas kind of get lost in the final, in the finale, in the final version of what we got, but I do think there's some poignant moments. It's just not as poignant as the original as the original Full Monty movie. But I did have a good time watching it though. I did have a good time with this series. I enjoyed seeing those characters back, as what he mentioned quite a few times. But that is one of the main bits of the show. One of the reasons I really did dig this series, because I enjoyed seeing all these characters back. And I think there is a good balance with all their character arcs and all their stories in the show. I just wish the balance was better. It's good, it's just not great, because there's so many characters in the show, and sometimes it feels like there's a bit too much focus on the younger characters, and that's not the reason you're watching the series. But I think the balance was there to a degree. There are some really great parts, there are some really good parts, and there's just some fine parts. And that's pretty much how I feel about the show. It's a solid sequel to the Full Monty movie, and I'm glad that it happened, and I'm glad that they got the original cast back as well. They didn't just get like 2 cast members back from the original Full Monty movie. They got all the cast members back, even though one just leaves randomly halfway through. You know, I'm still glad that they got all the cast members back, and there's also some great music in the show, some great needle drops. You know, it's a good series, and it's enjoyable to watch. I just wish it was great, like the Full Monty movie, but it's a worthy follow-up, and I've been rambling about it way too much. But yeah, it's a good modern-day British show that doesn't quite reach the heights of its predecessor or the heights that it sets out to achieve, but it has heart. It has a strong heart there, which is ultimately why I kept the show and why it worked for me. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that the Full Monty TV show, I'm going to say that it's a 7.5 out of 10. One of the things that I want to mention is I do think this show takes some influence of the Stephen Merchant written, and I think he directed it. Yeah, he did. The written and directed Stephen Merchant show, The Outlaws, which was my favourite TV show of 2020 and 2021. You know, it had 2 seasons of that, and apparently that's coming back sometime next year, which I'm really excited about. I didn't think it would. But yeah, I do think this show takes some inspiration off the Stephen Merchant TV show Outlaws, which if you haven't checked it out, check out on BBC iPlayer. I'm pretty sure it's also on Prime Video. Really great series. And I do think that this series wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the Outlaws. And if you've seen both shows, which is probably unlikely because it doesn't sound like many people watch the Outlaws, but if you've seen both shows, you'll know what I mean. Yeah, there's a lot I really liked about the series though. Mainly just watching these characters back, you know. I just hang out with these characters. And there's some really funny jokes as well. Jokes that I don't really want to spoil. I mean, I've already spoiled one of the jokes, where they all have to, at a much older age, do the Full Monty routine all over again. You know, there's some really great jokes, some really great moments, and some... It's got a strong beating heart, this series, which is why I've given it a 7.5 out of 10. Like, even so, it does forget about some storylines, it has some problems, some waste potential, and I don't think the payoff was totally there with all these storylines, even though it's got some problems, you know, some big problems at that at times, but that really silly storyline involving a dog, which I didn't really get. I thought it was going to come back in some later episodes, but didn't really. It was just a bit of a waste, that whole storyline through the dog, and if you've seen the series, you know what I mean? Even though the series had its problem, it had a strong heart, which is why I give it 7.5 out of 10, because it had a strong heart. I enjoyed seeing his characters back, and I enjoyed myself watching this show. I never found it boring, but at the same time, yeah, it's just not as good as the movie. But the movie is great. The original Full Monty movie is great. And the series, yeah, it's a good follow-up. It's a solid follow-up that has a strong heart, which is why it works. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that the Full Monty TV series, I'm going to say that's a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that is it for this podcast for today. Thank you, as always, for watching or listening. And if you have watched the Full Monty TV show, which from the sounds of it, I don't think many people have, but if you have watched the Full Monty TV show, then please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Would I recommend it? Just on an off note, well, it's not really an off note, is it? You know, would I recommend it just on a later note, should I say? Yes, I would. I would recommend the show. It's on Disney Plus, and one other thing I want to say is, if a Series 2 was to happen, I would be up for it. I don't think a Series 2 is going to happen, though. I think it's unlikely. Apparently, the intention was to make it as a limited series, and it does feel like that, although there is some stuff left open. The ending is a little bit ambiguous, so they could do a Series 2, although I'm going to guess that they won't. But if they do a Series 2, I'll be interested in it. But if you have seen the show, that's what I was saying before, if you have seen the show, let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, please do like, subscribe on this podcast. Pardon me, and look forward to many more podcasts coming very soon on this channel. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.